All right, get this. We're diving deep into the story of David Coleman Headley.
Yeah.
This guy went from like smuggling drugs
Well,
to being a like major player in planning the 2008 Mumbai attacks.
oh, wow.
Crazy, right? And it really makes you think about, global surveillance and how effective it actually is.
Yeah, it really does. What's, I think, really fascinating about Headley is that
Mm-hmm.
even with all these programs like the NSA had going on, he was still able to kind of fly under the radar.
Yeah.
It really highlights that kind of cat and mouse game between intelligence agencies
Right.
and, these people who are determined to carry out attacks.
Okay, so let's unpack this a little bit. Headley's early life.
Yeah.
It was a real mix of cultures and experiences.
It was.
He was born, died Jelani in Washington, D.C.,
Right.
and then raised between the U.S. and Pakistan.
Wow.
Exposed to, like, totally different worlds.
Yeah, and it wasn't just the cultural clashes, I mean.
Right.
Headley also struggled with addiction,
Oh, wow.
which I think adds another layer
Yep.
to, like, how someone ends up on such a, destructive path.
Right.
It really underscores the idea that radicalization isn't just this straightforward thing.
Right.
It's complex.
Yeah.
There's no one formula for it.
Absolutely. And his first run-in with the law was actually for drug smuggling.
Oh, wow.
Busted in 1988 for heroin possession.
Mhm.
He cut a deal with the DEA,
Okay.
got a reduced sentence. But here's where it gets really interesting. Instead of cleaning up his act,
Right.
he goes from smuggling drugs to being involved with planning terror attacks.
That's quite a shift.
Yeah.
That's a big shift. I think that really demonstrates how, like, personal experiences and ideologies
Yeah.
and external influences
Mm-hmm.
can come together and really create an individual capable of something like that.
Right.
It's not like flipping a switch.
Right. It's not black and white.
It's not.
So he goes back to Pakistan, starts building ties with all these militant groups, and eventually he links up with Lashkar-e-Taiba,
Right.
or Lateh, the group behind the Mumbai attacks.
Yeah.
And he wasn't just like a pawn in their game either.
Right.
He became like a major player in their operations.
Yeah, and it's chilling
Yeah.
because his involvement, it wasn't limited to just Mumbai.
Right.
He was also involved in plotting an attack against the Danish newspaper Jyllands-Posten in 2009.
Oh, wow.
Which really shows just how far his reach extended.
Yeah, this guy was operating on a global scale.
He was.
And by the time Headley is putting all these terror plots together,
Yeah.
programs like those run by the NSA are in full swing, right? They're supposed to be tracking
Yeah.
terrorists operating cross borders, especially, guys like Headley,
Yeah.
using multiple identities and staying off the grid.
Right. The thinking was that these programs
Right.
would be able to connect the dots
Mm-hmm.
and find those,
Yeah.
needles in the haystack.
Yeah.
And remember,
Yeah.
this was post 9/11.
Right.
The fear of another attack
Right.
was very, very real.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then Edward Snowden comes along, 2013, drops this bombshell,
Oh, yeah.
revealing how massive these surveillance programs actually were.
Yeah.
Like, the NSA was collecting
Yeah.
phone records, communications data, you name it.
You name it. It was. Talk about a wake-up call
Yeah,
for a lot of people.
it was.
I mean, Snowden's revelations really sparked
yeah,
this huge debate
right,
about privacy versus security.
right.
You had privacy advocates arguing that these programs were just this massive overreach,
Yeah,
a violation of, basic rights.
right,
And then you had security professionals who were saying, these are essential.
right.
These are absolutely essential for preventing terrorism.
Yeah, and here's the kicker. Despite being on the radar of, the NSA and other Western agencies,
Yeah.
Headley still pulls off the Mumbai attacks.
Yeah. I mean, they were watching him.
Yeah.
They were tracking his activities, even the things related to that Jyllands-Posten plot in Copenhagen.
Right.
But the Mumbai attack still happened.
It's unbelievable.
But it really makes you wonder, like, did mass surveillance fail in this case?
Yeah.
Or, did it just expose the limitations
Right.
of even the most advanced intelligence gathering efforts?
Right.
Even with all that data, could it ever be enough
Yeah.
to really stop something like that from happening?
Yeah. I mean, it's almost hard to believe, right?
Is
They had their eyes on him,
Right.
but he was still able to orchestrate such a devastating attack.
Yeah,
It really makes you question
he does.
the whole idea of these sweeping surveillance programs.
It certainly makes things more complicated. And you're right. I mean, the human cost of the Mumbai
Oh,
attacks
yeah.
was just staggering.
Yeah.
166 people died.
It's crazy.
And it really forces us to ask,
Yeah.
could anything have been done differently?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Headley was finally arrested in 2009,
Right.
thanks to a combined effort from the FBI and other agencies. But it makes you think, like, could they have gotten to him sooner?
Yeah.
Was there some kind of delay in connecting all the pieces?
Yeah. Was there
Yeah.
a failure to connect the dots?
Could those attacks have been prevented altogether?
A big question.
Yeah.
And this ties directly back to,
Right.
that erosion of trust in surveillance programs
Right.
after Snowden.
Like just on, yeah.
Did agencies overreach collecting all this data?
Right.
And maybe even violating citizens' privacy,
Yeah.
only to then miss crucial threats like Headley.
Right.
It's hard to grapple with that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh, okay, but how did he manage to stay under the radar for so long?
Yeah.
I mean, this wasn't just like
Yeah.
some small-time operation.
Yeah.
This guy was deeply embedded
Oh, yeah.
in multiple terrorist networks.
One key factor was his role as a dual agent.
Okay.
He was actually working for Pakistani intelligence
What?
at the same time that he was collaborating with groups like
No.
Al-Qaeda and Lati.
It's crazy.
So you have these layers of deception
Yeah.
that make him incredibly difficult to track.
Yeah.
He was essentially playing both sides,
Oh, wow.
feeding information back and forth,
Wow.
manipulating everyone involved.
That's wild.
It is.
It's like something out of a spy movie,
It really is.
but with real-world consequences.
Yeah, it's a chilling thought.
It is.
And he was a master at covering his tracks.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
remember his trip to Copenhagen
Uh-huh.
for that planned attack on the Danish newspaper?
Right.
He basically used a business trip as cover.
What?
Just casually taking pictures
Oh, my God.
of potential targets,
Wow.
pretending to be a tourist.
So he was gathering intelligence
was.
right under everyone's noses.
Yeah,
It really makes you question the effectiveness of these
it does.
massive surveillance programs.
Yeah,
I mean, if they couldn't stop Headley,
right.
who could they stop?
It really throws a wrench
Yeah.
in that whole argument
Yeah.
for mass surveillance.
Yeah.
I mean, it brings us back to that fundamental question.
Right.
How much privacy are we willing to give up
Yeah.
in the name of security?
It's a tough question.
It is.
Some people believe that these programs are absolutely necessary
They do.
to protect lives,
Right.
to prevent another Mumbai.
To prevent another Mumbai.
But then you have others
Yeah.
who worry that we're chipping away
Yeah.
at our civil liberties,
Right.
creating a society where everybody is constantly being watched.
It's a slippery slope.
It is. It feels like we're constantly teetering between
Yeah.
these two extremes.
It's incredibly complex.
It is.
And Headley's story really serves as this stark reminder
Yeah.
that even with all the technology,
Mm-hmm.
all the resources that we have,
Yeah.
surveillance has its limits.
Right.
It's not a foolproof solution. It's not
Yeah.
a magic bullet.
Yeah. So where do we even go from here?
Right.
We've talked about this incredibly complex case,
Yeah.
explored these global surveillance programs, and it seems like their effectiveness is kind of questionable.
Yeah.
And we've really been grappling with this whole dilemma of how to balance security and privacy.
Right.
What's the takeaway for us, for people listening?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
I think the David Coleman Headley case really exposes this tension,
Yeah.
this constant tension that we face
Mm-hmm.
as a society.
Yeah.
On the one hand,
Yeah.
you have people who say, look, surveillance is a necessary evil.
Right.
It's the price we pay for safety
Right.
in a world where the threats are constantly evolving.
And then on the other, you have folks who worry that giving up privacy is kind of a slippery slope.
It is.
That it erodes freedom
Mm-hmm.
and democracy.
Right. It's like we're constantly trying to find that balance,
Yeah.
that sweet spot between
Yeah.
security
Right.
and liberty.
It feels like we're always kind of teetering
Yeah.
between these two extremes.
We are. It's an ongoing challenge.
It is.
And I think Headley's story is just a powerful reminder
Yeah.
that even with all the technology and all the resources that we have,
Right.
surveillance it's not a foolproof solution.
Right.
It's not a magic bullet.
Yeah. So what can we do? Are we just supposed to
Yeah.
accept that these programs exist and just hope for the best?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think the takeaway here is that we need to be vigilant.
Okay.
We can't just blindly trust
Right.
that these programs are working the way they're supposed to
Yeah.
or that they're being used responsibly.
Right.
We need to ask tough questions.
Yeah.
We need to demand transparency
Right.
from those in power and hold them accountable
Okay.
for their actions.
So it's about being informed
It is.
and engaged citizens,
Yeah.
not just, you
Yeah.
know, passive consumers of information.
Right. We can't just sit back
Right.
and let things happen.
We need to be active participants
We do.
in shaping the future.
We do.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
We need to be critical thinkers,
Okay. Yeah.
questioning assumptions, considering different perspectives.
Right.
And we need to be willing to have these difficult conversations
Yeah.
to really dig into the complexities
Yeah.
of surveillance and privacy and
Right. Right.
the trade-offs that we're making
Yeah.
in the name of security.
It's a lot to consider,
It is.
but it really does feel like
You also,
understanding these issues is more important now
it is.
than ever before.
Yeah, I agree. And I think ultimately the choices that we make today
Yeah.
are going to shape the world we live in tomorrow.
Right.
Headley's story
Yeah.
is a powerful reminder of that.
It is.
It's a call to action for all of us
Yeah.
to be more informed,
Right.
more engaged,
Yeah.
and more proactive in protecting
Right.
both our security and our freedoms.
It's about finding that balance, right?
It is. It's about finding that equilibrium
Yeah.
where we can feel safe without sacrificing
Yeah.
the liberties that define us.
This has been a really fascinating deep dive.
It has.
I think we've covered a lot of really important stuff.
I think so too.
And I really appreciate you coming on and
Thank you for having me.
sharing your expertise.
It's been my pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah. And to everyone listening, you know, keep thinking about these issues.
Absolutely.
Keep asking questions.
Stay engaged.
Yeah. And stay vigilant.
Absolutely.